Chosen one, beloved. If this message found you at 2 a.m. when sleep wouldn't come, if it found you in your kitchen staring at unpaid bills, if it found you wondering why everyone else seems blessed while you've been buried alive in silence, this is not an accident. Heaven has been waiting for this exact moment to whisper your name again. Tell me something. Why do you feel invisible in a world full of people? Why does your soul ache with a loneliness so deep that even crowded rooms feel empty? Why have you been carrying burdens so heavy that some nights you've whispered to God, "Have you forgotten I exist?" Here's a shocking truth that's about to shatter everything you believed about your situation. What you thought was abandonment was actually preparation. Every tear you've cried in secret, God collected in golden bowls. Every prayer you whispered thinking no one heard, heaven recorded as evidence. Every time you should have quit but didn't, that was divine DNA activating in your bloodstream. You see, the enemy has been running a psychological warfare campaign against your mind for decades. He convinced you that delayed meant denied, that hidden meant forgotten, that your best years were behind you when God was actually saving the finest wine for last. But something massive is shifting in the spiritual realm right now. Can you feel it? That restlessness in your chest, that stirring you can't explain. That's not anxiety, dear one. That's activation. What if everything you thought was forgotten, every sacrifice nobody noticed, every kindness unrewarded, every moment you chose integrity when compromise would have been easier? What if all of it was being written in heaven's book, waiting for this day? Before we journey deeper into this mystery together, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit lead your heart. But right now, if something inside you is already stirring, if your spirit recognizes what I'm saying as truth, don't ignore it. I need you to say it out loud, right where you are. I am chosen. Say it again. I am chosen. Because what I'm about to reveal will explain why your life has been harder than most, why you've felt different since childhood, and why God is about to shock everyone who thought you were forgotten. The preparation is over, beloved. Your moment has arrived. You know what breaks my heart? It's when I think about all of you sitting there right now, carrying scars that no one ever asked about. All of you who've been the strong one in every room, the reliable one in every crisis, the steady one while everyone else was falling apart. But who has been strong for you? When was the last time someone looked you in the eye and said, "Thank you for carrying what you didn't have to carry"? When was the last time someone noticed that your smile was a little forced, that your "I'm fine" was a little hollow, that behind your encouragement of others was a soul desperate for someone to encourage you back? Here's what haunts me about your generation, dear one. You're the ones who built this nation with your bare hands, who raised families while working 3 jobs, who held communities together through sheer force of will. You're the ones who never called in sick, never asked for help, never let anyone see you sweat. And now you sit in rooms where people half your age act like your wisdom doesn't matter, like your experience is outdated, like your voice is just noise from the past. You've been applauding everyone else's victories while your own achievements collected dust in the corner. You've been the first to celebrate others' breakthroughs while your own dreams got buried under decades of someday. When things settled down, the applause that never came. Do you feel that ache in your chest? That hollow space where recognition should have lived? You watched your children graduate, your grandchildren grow up, your friends get honored for things you taught them how to do. You stood in the back, clapping, smiling, celebrating, while inside you wondered if anyone would ever see you the way you saw them. The thank yous that never arrived. How many meals did you cook that were eaten without gratitude? How many late nights did you work that went unnoticed? How many times did you sacrifice your own comfort, your own desires, your own dreams so others could chase theirs? And the thank you? It's still sitting in the mailbox of your heart, unopened, undelivered. But here's where it gets deeper, where it cuts to the bone. Those nights when you laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling so unutterably alone that even God seemed distant. Those nights when you cried into your pillow because the weight of being everyone's rock was crushing your own foundation. Those nights when you whispered into the darkness, "God, do you even see me? Does my faithfulness matter? Have I been forgotten?" You've been like a tree in winter, standing bare, stripped of leaves, appearing lifeless to those who only judge by what they can see on the surface. People walk past winter trees without a second glance. They don't see the majesty, the endurance, the deep root system that's been growing for decades in the hidden places underground. They don't see the life force still pulsing through those bare branches, the preparation happening in the silence, the strength being stored for the season when leaves will return more magnificent than ever. That's been you, hasn't it? Standing strong while appearing forgotten, alive and growing in the depths while the world dismissed you as dormant. Root systems don't make headlines, but they hold up the tree when the storms come. And oh, dear one, the storms you've weathered. You've been the widow who learned to fix her own leaky faucets because no one else was coming. You've been the grandfather who sits alone at family dinners because everyone's too busy scrolling through their phones to hear your stories. You've been the retiree who dedicated 40 years of your life to a company that sent you home with a plastic clock and promptly forgot your name. Society has taught you to shrink, to step aside, to make room for the younger, faster, louder voices. They've convinced you that your season is over, that your best days are behind you, that your purpose expired with your last paycheck. They've whispered lies that your health struggles mean God is through with you, that your financial limitations mean you've been forgotten, that your loneliness means you don't matter anymore. But I need you to hear something that's going to shatter every lie the enemy has whispered in your ear during those 3 a.m. moments of despair. Psalm 37:25 says, "I have been young, and now am old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread." David wrote those words as an old man, looking back across a lifetime of God's faithfulness, even in the seasons when that faithfulness was invisible to human eyes. Silence on earth does not mean silence in heaven. Heaven kept count. Every single tear you cried in secret collected in golden bowls before the throne of God. Every act of kindness no one acknowledged recorded in the books of heaven. Every time you chose integrity when no one was watching. Every time you forgave when you had every right to harbor bitterness. Every time you got up one more day when giving up would have been easier, all of it seen. All of it counted, all of it stored up for such a time as this. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us that man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. While the world has been judging you by your wrinkles, your slower pace, your outdated references, God has been looking at your heart and seeing decades of faithfulness that would make angels weep with admiration. You think you've been forgotten, but you've been fermenting, like wine in a cellar, hidden from view but growing more valuable with each passing year. The master vintner doesn't forget his finest bottles. He saves them for the most important occasions. Right now, as these words penetrate the deepest chambers of your heart, I need you to do something that might feel foreign after years of being overlooked. I need you to declare war on the lie that you don't matter. Type it, whisper it, declare it with whatever strength you have left. Heaven has not forgotten me. Say it again, louder this time. Heaven has not forgotten me, because what I'm about to reveal next will prove that every moment of feeling invisible was actually God positioning you for the greatest visibility of your entire life. Now I need to tell you something that's going to completely shatter your understanding of what's been happening in your life. Are you ready? Because this truth is about to turn everything upside down. What if I told you that every single delay you've endured wasn't God saying no to you? What if every closed door wasn't rejection but redirection? What if every season of hiddenness wasn't abandonment but divine strategy? You see, dear one, you've been interpreting your story through the lens of human timing, but God operates on covenant timing. And there's a massive difference between the two that will blow your mind once you understand it. Think about this for a moment. Why do you plant a seed in the darkness of soil instead of placing it on top where everyone can see it? Because exposure kills what's still developing. The darkness isn't punishment, it's protection. The hiddenness isn't rejection, it's incubation. For decades you've been buried, but you weren't buried to die. You were planted to rise. Galatians 6-9 declares with thunderous authority, "Do not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not." Did you catch that phrase? In due season, not in your season, not in their season. In God's appointed, predetermined, perfectly orchestrated season. And beloved, your season is here. But let me ask you something that's going to cut straight to your heart. How many times have you looked at your life and whispered, "God, when is my turn?" How many nights have you stared at the ceiling wondering why everyone else seems to get their breakthrough while you're still waiting for yours? How many moments have you felt like you were invisible to heaven itself? Here's the shocking truth. You weren't invisible. You were being shielded. Every person who overlooked you, every opportunity that passed you by, every door that slammed in your face, it wasn't because you weren't good enough. It was because the timing wasn't right. And God, in His infinite wisdom, was protecting you from premature exposure that would have destroyed what He was building inside you. You think you were forgotten. You were being refined. You think you were passed over. You were being prepared. You think you were sidelined. You were being positioned for something so magnificent that if it had come any earlier, it would have crushed you under its weight. The enemy convinced you that delayed meant denied. But delay in God's kingdom means development. Every month you waited, character was being built. Every year that passed, spiritual muscle was being strengthened. Every decade of endurance was qualifying you for an assignment that required exactly the depth of faith you've developed. Think about Joseph, 17 years old with dreams of greatness, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, forgotten in prison for years. By human standards, his story looked like a complete disaster. But God was positioning him to save not just his family, but entire nations from famine. What looked like the end was actually the beginning. What appeared to be punishment was preparation for promotion. What seemed like abandonment was divine appointment. The same God who orchestrated Joseph's rise is orchestrating yours. The same power that promoted him from prisoner to prime minister in a single day is working in your situation right now. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where this cuts deep into your soul. The very people who wrote you off, who counted you out, who assumed your time had passed, they have no idea what's about to happen. The same rooms that ignored you will soon call your name. The same mouths that doubted you will witness your rising. And it will not be because of chance, but because of covenant. This isn't luck, dear one. This is justice. Divine justice for every tear you cried in secret. Divine compensation for every sacrifice that went unnoticed. Divine vindication for every moment. You chose faith over fear, hope over despair, love over bitterness. The seed that's been planted in the darkness of your circumstances is about to break through the soil. And when it does, the world won't know what hit them. Because what's coming isn't just blessing, it's breakthrough. Not just favor, it's overflow. Not just recognition, it's revelation of what God has been doing behind the scenes all along. You've been living like your story was stuck on pause. But heaven has been writing, preparing, aligning, orchestrating a comeback so powerful that it will leave your enemies speechless and your doubters stunned. The hiddenness is ending. The silence is breaking. The season of not yet is transforming into right now. And everyone who thought they could count you out is about to learn that when God decides to promote someone, no force in hell can stop it. Don't you dare give up now. Don't you dare believe the lie that it's too late. Don't you dare settle for less than what God has prepared for you. Your story isn't ending, it's turning. And the turn is so dramatic, so supernatural, so undeniably divine, that even you won't recognize your own life 6 months from now. But there's something else you need to understand about this divine reversal that's about to shock everyone who counted you out. Listen to me, chosen one. The world has been lying to you about your age, your worth, your season. They whispered that your time was over, that you should fade quietly into the background. But I'm here to tell you something that will shatter every limitation they placed on your life. You are not forgotten seniors living out your final chapters. You are generals of prayer who have fought battles in the spiritual realm that younger generations can't even comprehend. You are architects of legacy, building foundations with your faithfulness that will stand for centuries. You are carriers of fire, holy fire, that burns brighter with each passing year, not dimmer. The enemy convinced you that grey hair meant God was done with you, that wrinkles were signs of decline, that your slower pace meant your spiritual race was finished. But let me shock you with biblical truth that will ignite something ancient in your bones. Moses was 80 years old when God called him to his greatest assignment. 80. The world would have put him in a nursing home, but God put a staff in his hand and said, "Now we begin." For 40 more years, Moses led a nation, split seas, and spoke face to face with the Almighty. His burning bush moment didn't come in his youth, it came when the world thought he was done. Abraham received God's greatest promise at 75, but didn't see it fulfilled until he was 100 years old. Sarah laughed at 90 because she thought her season of miracles had passed. But God specializes in impossible mathematics. And Isaac's laughter filled their tent when logic said their wombs were closed forever. Anna the prophetess was 84 when she finally saw the Christ child in the temple. 84 years of waiting, praying, believing. The world called her an old woman, living in the past, but God called her a prophet, positioned for the future. When baby Jesus was brought to the temple, she was the first to recognize the Messiah and proclaim redemption to all who looked for it in Jerusalem. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Your age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. Every year you've lived, every storm you've weathered, every mountain you've climbed has been preparing you for this moment when God says, "Now, this is your time." But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what makes the angels weep. You've carried burdens in silence that would have crushed weaker souls. You've made sacrifices that nobody applauded. You've chosen integrity when compromise would have been easier. You've prayed prayers that felt like they bounced off heaven's ceiling. You've given until your cup was empty, served until your strength was gone, loved until your heart was broken. And what did you get in return? Silence, rejection, being overlooked, undervalued, forgotten by a world that worships youth and dismisses wisdom. But listen carefully to what I'm about to say, because this will change everything you thought you knew about your situation. Justice is coming for every silent sacrifice. Right now, in the courtroom of heaven, something unprecedented is happening. The judge of all the earth is rising from his throne. Every tear you've cried in secret, he collected them in golden bowls. Every prayer you whispered when hope felt impossible, he recorded as evidence. Every act of faithfulness when no one was watching, he documented in eternal archives. Psalm 56:8 declares, "You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book." Do you hear that? God didn't just notice your pain, he treasured it. He didn't overlook your struggles, he transformed them into ammunition for this moment. The case against injustice is being presented right now. Every time you were passed over for someone younger, every time your wisdom was dismissed, every time your contributions were minimized, heaven has been building a case. And when the supreme judge of the universe renders his verdict, it echoes through every realm. Guilty of overlooking my chosen ones, guilty of dismissing my generals, guilty of forgetting my architects of faith. And now comes the sentence. Not vengeance, vindication. Not revenge, restoration. Not payback, promotion. What looked like the end of your story is about to become the headline of God's glory. Your hiddenness is turning into your headline. The same people who wrote you off as yesterday's news are about to witness tomorrow's miracle walking in your shoes. The same voices that said you were finished are about to hear your testimony of faithfulness echo through their confusion. The same institutions that put you on the shelf are about to discover that God was saving his best wine for last. This isn't about proving them wrong, this is about proving God right. Right about his timing, right about his choices, right about placing his greatest assignments in vessels the world considers empty. You think your influence is fading. God says it's about to explode. You think your voice doesn't matter. Heaven says it's about to carry weight that makes mountains move. You think your season is ending. The Almighty declares your finest hour is dawning. But here's the urgency that should grip your soul right now. This isn't someday. This isn't next year. This shift is happening now. The spiritual atmosphere over your life is changing as you hear these words. Angels are repositioning. Doors are creaking open. Hearts are being prepared to receive what God has been building in you through decades of silent faithfulness. If you feel that fire igniting in your chest, if something ancient is stirring in your spirit, if you recognize that this word is for you, don't you dare shrink back into the shadows of "I'm too old" or "my time has passed." Stand up in your spirit right now and declare what heaven already knows about you. Type it in the comments. Shout it in your living room. Let the walls of your limitations hear it. Justice. Say it again with the authority of someone who's been tested by fire and refined like gold. Justice. Because the courtroom of heaven has spoken, and what's coming for you next will leave this world speechless at God's faithfulness to his forgotten ones. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. For 70, 80, maybe 90 years, you've been told a lie so insidious, so carefully crafted by the enemy, that you accepted it as truth. They whispered that your season was over, that your voice no longer mattered, that you should step aside and let the younger generation take over. But what if I told you that everything they said about your golden years is backwards? You thought joy was behind you, but joy is standing in front of you. You thought your voice grew weaker. Heaven says your voice is thunder. You thought your best days were yesterday. God says your finest hour is today. See, the world looks at your silver hair and sees decline. But Proverbs 16:31 declares something that will shatter their perception. Gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained by living a godly life. A crown, beloved, not a curse, not a countdown. A crown. Think about this. When Moses stood before Pharaoh to demand freedom for an entire nation, he was 80 years old. 80. When Sarah laughed at God's promise of a child, she was 90, and her laughter became the foundation of nations. When Caleb said, "Give me this mountain," he was 85 and ready to fight giants. Your age isn't your expiration date, it's your activation code. But here's what breaks my heart. The church, the very place that should honor your wisdom, has bought into the world's lie. They've made you feel invisible, irrelevant, like furniture in the sanctuary. They celebrate the young, the loud, the flashy, while you sit in the back row, wondering if God remembers you exist. Stop. Right there. The God who created time doesn't operate by social security schedules. The God who invented seasons doesn't retire his warriors when the world thinks they're past their prime. He refines them. He promotes them. He saves the best wine for last. You want to know why your life has been harder than most? Why you've carried weights that would crush younger souls? Why you've walked through fires that would have consumed people half your age? Because God was forging something in you that only decades of pressure could create: unshakable faith, battle-tested wisdom, and a trust in him that doesn't flinch when storms come. The enemy saw what God was building and panicked. That's why the attacks were so vicious. That's why the loneliness cut so deep. That's why just when you thought you'd found peace, another storm would hit. Hell recognized the threat you would become if you ever fully understood who you are. But today, this very moment, the veil is being torn away. You are not forgotten remnants of a bygone era. You are God's secret weapons, strategically positioned for such a time as this. While the world celebrates youth, heaven celebrates endurance. While they worship energy, God honors wisdom. While they chase tomorrow, you carry yesterday's victories and today's authority. Look around you. This generation is lost, drowning in anxiety, addicted to screens, starving for meaning. They need what you carry. They need your prayers that have been tested by fire. They need your faith that survived decades of waiting. They need your love that chose to stay soft in a hard world. But here's the revelation that's about to change everything. You are not in survival mode anymore. You are entering flourishing. This isn't about managing decline. This is about divine activation. This isn't about winding down. This is about winding up for your greatest assignment. The loneliness you felt, that was God separating you from voices that would contaminate your calling. The delays you've endured, that was heaven timing your emergence perfectly. The struggles that should have broken you, that was divine preparation for authority that only comes through tested character. Right now, something is shifting in the spiritual atmosphere over America. God is calling forth His mature army, those who've learned to worship in the wilderness, to praise in the valley, to trust when they can't see. He's done with flashy and shallow. He needs deep and proven. You think you're too old to make a difference. Moses delivered a nation at 80. You think your dreams expired? Abraham received his promise at 100. You think God's finished with you? Anna the prophetess was 84 when she recognized the Messiah and became the first evangelist. This is covenant blessing, beloved, not counterfeit blessing that fades with age, not conditional blessing that depends on performance. This is the blessing of belonging to a God who specializes in resurrections, who delights in using the counted out to confound the counting. Your gray hair isn't evidence of decline, it's proof of divine investment. Every wrinkle tells a story of God's faithfulness. Every scar bears witness to His healing power. Every slow step carries the weight of earned wisdom. The world wrote you off, but heaven is writing you in. They thought you were finished. God says you're refined. They said your time was up. The Almighty says your time is now. Stand up where you are right now. I mean it. Stand up. Lift your hands to heaven. Look up and declare with everything in you, I am walking into flourishing. I am not forgotten. I am freshly anointed. My finest hour has arrived. Say it louder. I am walking into flourishing. Because what's about to happen next will not just shock the people who counted you out. It will revolutionize how you see yourself and unleash the authority that's been dormant in your spirit for decades. Listen to me, chosen one. Right now, at this very moment, there's a rumbling in the heavenly realm. The same God who spoke light into darkness, who parted the Red Sea with a word, who raised Jesus from that sealed tomb, that same God is looking at your situation and saying, enough. Enough of the whispers that you're finished. Enough of the assumptions that your time has passed. Enough of people treating you like yesterday's news when heaven has been preparing you for tomorrow's headlines. You want to know why your journey has been so brutal. You want to understand why every door seemed to slam in your face just when breakthrough felt within reach. Because the enemy saw what God was building in you. He recognized the threat you would become. So he launched a full-scale assault against your confidence, your hope, your very sense of worth. But here's what hell never counted on. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're still believing. And that, beloved, is proof that what God has planted in you cannot be uprooted by circumstances. The stone they rolled in front of your life is being pushed aside, not by your strength, not by your connections, not by your resume or your bank account, by the mighty hand of the God who specializes in resurrection moments. Think about Lazarus. 4 days dead, 4 days of people whispering, it's over, he's gone, there's nothing left. But Jesus stood at that tomb and called him by name. And death itself had to release what belonged to the voice of life. Your name is being called right now. Can you hear it? Through the static of doubt, through the noise of disappointment, through the chorus of voices that said you were done. Heaven is calling your name. They thought you were too old to start over. They thought you were too broken to be useful. They thought you were too forgotten to matter anymore. But God is about to shock them all, because while they were writing your obituary, God was writing your comeback story. While they were measuring your worth by yesterday's failures, heaven was calculating your value by tomorrow's victories. While they were counting you out, the Almighty was preparing to count you in. Do you remember what happened when Moses stood before the Red Sea? Trapped, cornered, with Pharaoh's army charging from behind and an impossible ocean stretching ahead. Logic said he was finished. Circumstances screamed defeat. But then God moved, and what looked like the end became the beginning of the greatest liberation in human history. That's your moment right now. What looks like your dead end is actually God's setup for your breakthrough. The very people who dismissed you are about to witness what happens when heaven decides to vindicate its chosen ones. The same workplace that overlooked you will see your promotion. The same family members who underestimated you will witness your transformation. The same community that counted you out will watch as God counts you worthy of honor they never imagined you could carry. This isn't revenge, beloved. This is divine order. This is how heaven makes a statement. This is what happens when God decides to shock a world that thought they could bury his treasure and get away with it. Isaiah 61:3 promises beauty for ashes, joy for mourning, praise for heaviness. But notice God doesn't just replace the ashes. He transforms them into something so beautiful that people can't help but stare. Your scars become your testimony. Your struggles become your strength. Your setbacks become your comeback story. The same places that rejected you will now witness your rising. The same voices that said never will have to swallow the word suddenly. The same circumstances that tried to bury you will become the soil from which your greatest season grows. But here's the urgency burning in my spirit right now. This moment won't last forever. This divine window of opportunity has an expiration date. The favor that's hovering over your life right now is waiting for one thing: your agreement. Heaven is asking, will you believe it? Will you receive it? Will you step into what I've prepared, or will you keep rehearsing what they predicted? Because the God who opened Hannah's womb at her desperate hour, who promoted Joseph from prison to palace in a single day, who turned water into wine when all hope was exhausted, that same God is saying over your life right now, this is your time, this is your moment, this is your season of vindication. If you believe it, if something in your spirit is leaping right now, I need you to write it in the comments. Declare it to your children. Tell it to your spirit. This is my season. Because what happens next will require the kind of faith that shocks hell and thrills heaven. You know what breaks my heart? It's when I see chosen ones who've convinced themselves that God's silence means God's absence. That delayed answers equal denied prayers. That because breakthrough hasn't come in their timeline, it's never coming at all. But what if I told you something that would shatter every lie you've believed about your waiting season? What if your waiting wasn't wasted? What if silence was storage? Listen to me carefully, beloved. Right now, at this very moment, there's a courtroom in heaven where your case is being heard. Not because you're on trial, but because you're being vindicated. Revelation 8:3-4 tells us that an angel came and stood at the altar, holding a golden censer, and he was given much incense to offer, with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar before the throne. Your prayers, every desperate midnight cry, every whispered plea through tears, every moment you begged God to remember you, they haven't disappeared into empty air. They've been collected, stored, preserved in golden bowls before the throne of the Almighty. And those bowls, they're about to be poured out. But here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Your waiting wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Your hiding wasn't abandonment, it was protection. Think about this. Why did God hide Moses for 80 years before revealing him to Pharaoh? Why did David spend years in caves before sitting on the throne? Why did Joseph rot in prison before ruling Egypt? Because some assignments are so massive, so world-changing, that they require deep, hidden preparation. You think you've been forgotten? No, dear one, you've been forged. What if your waiting wasn't wasted? What if silence was storage? Let me paint you a picture that will change everything you thought you knew about delay. In the spiritual realm, there are scrolls with your name on them. Isaiah 34:16 declares, "Seek from the book of the Lord and read, not one of these shall be missing." Your breakthrough has been written, your vindication has been decreed, your moment of revelation has been sealed. But those scrolls remain closed until the appointed time. Not because God is cruel, but because timing is everything. Release something too early, and it gets destroyed by unprepared ground. Release it too late, and the moment passes. But release it at the exact right moment, it changes everything. You've been living in the chamber of waiting. And chambers aren't prisons, they're preparation rooms. In the natural world, a butterfly spends time in the cocoon not being punished, but being transformed. What looks like confinement is actually metamorphosis. Every rejection you faced was God protecting you from settling for less than His best. Every door that slammed shut was heaven redirecting you from paths that would have destroyed your destiny. Every person who walked away was God removing distractions from your divine assignment. You weren't being ignored. You were being isolated for transformation. What if your waiting wasn't wasted? What if silence was storage? But here's where it gets personal. How many nights have you lain awake wondering if you missed your chance? How many times have you looked at others being promoted while you remained hidden and whispered, "God, what about me?" How many moments have you felt like you were running out of time? I need you to hear this with your spirit, not just your ears. You were not delayed, you were being preserved. You were not ignored. You were being protected. Daniel understood this mystery. For 70 years, Israel sat in Babylonian captivity while Daniel studied the scrolls and realized their exile had an expiration date. Daniel 9:2 says, "I, Daniel, observed in the books the number of the years which was revealed as the word of the Lord to Jeremiah the prophet for the completion of the desolations of Jerusalem, namely 70 years. 70 years of waiting. 70 years of feeling forgotten. But it wasn't abandonment, it was appointment. God had scheduled their freedom before their bondage even began. Your freedom has been scheduled too. Your breakthrough has a divine appointment. Your vindication is on heaven's calendar, and that calendar is about to turn to your page. What if your waiting wasn't wasted? What if silence was storage? Here's what's happening right now in the invisible realm. Those golden bowls I mentioned earlier, they're being lifted from the altar. The incense of your prayers is rising like sweet fragrance before the throne. And Revelation 8-5 tells us what happens next. Then the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and threw it to the earth. And there followed peals of thunder and sounds and flashes of lightning and an earthquake. An earthquake, beloved. Your prayers are about to cause an earthquake in your circumstances. Not because you waited long enough, but because the appointed time has arrived. The chamber of waiting is about to become the chamber of release. But I need to ask you something that's going to cut deep. Have you been carrying shame about your waiting season? Have you been apologizing for delays that were never in your control? Have you been making excuses for God's timing instead of trusting His wisdom? Stop it, right now. Stop carrying shame for a season that was developing your strength. Stop apologizing for a process that was perfecting your purpose. Stop doubting a delay that was actually divine strategy. You weren't buried, chosen one. You were planted. And what's been growing in the darkness is about to shock everyone who thought you were done. If you've ever felt buried by waiting, if you've ever questioned whether your prayers were heard, whether your dreams were valid, whether your time would ever come, I need you to declare this truth right now. Don't just think it, type it, speak it, claim it. Waiting is not wasting. Because what's about to be revealed will prove that every second of your waiting season was building toward this moment of unveiling. Listen to me carefully. Chosen one. I know you're sitting there right now, carrying scars that nobody talks about at Sunday dinner. I know there are wounds so deep in your soul that some nights you wake up at 3 a.m. and they're still bleeding fresh as the day they were carved into your heart. That divorce that left you questioning if you were ever truly lovable. That betrayal from the person you trusted most, your own child, your lifelong friend, your business partner who walked away with everything while you held the pieces of your shattered dreams. That diagnosis the doctor delivered with the emotional warmth of reading a grocery list. That phone call at midnight that changed everything forever. You've been asking God the same question for years. Why me? Why does everyone else seem to glide through life while I'm drowning in tribulation? Here's what's going to shock you to your core. Your pain wasn't random, it was strategic. You see, the enemy didn't attack you because you were weak. He attacked you because he saw what God was building inside you, and it terrified him. Every assault on your life, every attempt to break your spirit, every scheme designed to make you quit, it was hell's desperate attempt to stop what heaven was creating. Think about this. Why would darkness waste its energy on someone ordinary? Why would the forces of hell mobilize against someone insignificant? The very fact that you've been under siege your entire life is proof, undeniable proof, that you carry something they fear. You've been in the furnace of affliction, dear one, and I know it felt like punishment. I know there were nights you cried out, God, how much more can I take? But listen to what Isaiah 48:10 reveals. Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. That furnace wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to refine you, to burn away everything that wasn't pure gold, to transform you from ordinary clay into a vessel fit for the master's use. Look at Joseph, 17 years old, with dreams from God, only to be thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused by Potiphar's wife, forgotten in prison for years. Can you imagine the thoughts that tormented his mind? God, you gave me these dreams, but where are you now? But here's what Joseph couldn't see from his prison cell. Every betrayal was positioning him. Every injustice was preparing him. Every dark night was developing the character he'd need to save nations. Genesis 50:20 captures the revelation. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, thinking his purpose had died with his mistakes. 40 years of obscurity, tending sheep when he was destined to lead millions. But God wasn't punishing Moses in that desert. He was preparing him. The man who would split the Red Sea had to first learn to depend entirely on God's voice. David ran through caves like a fugitive when heaven had already anointed him king. For years, he hid from Saul's spears while carrying the promise of a throne. But those cave years weren't detours. They were his doctoral program in dependence on God. Every psalm he wrote in darkness became light for millions who would follow. And Anna, precious Anna, 84 years old, widowed after just 7 years of marriage, spending decades in the temple waiting for the Messiah. The world would have called her forgotten, but God was positioning her to be one of the first to proclaim redemption to Jerusalem. You were not sidelined, beloved. You were sharpened. Every tear you've cried was collected by heaven. Every sleepless night was recorded in God's ledger. Every moment you wanted to quit but didn't, that was divine DNA activating in your bloodstream. You thought you were barely surviving, but you were actually being transformed from glory to glory. But here's where it gets deeply personal. You've been looking at your scars as evidence of your brokenness. You've been ashamed of your wounds, hiding them like dirty secrets. You've been telling yourself that your pain disqualified you from God's best. That's a lie straight from the pit of hell. Jeremiah knew this truth when he went to the potter's house. Jeremiah 18:4 says, "And the vessel that he made of clay was marred in the hand of the potter. So he made it again into another vessel, as it seemed good to the potter to make." You think you're broken pottery, But God sees you as raw material for a masterpiece. The cracks in your heart aren't flaws, they're places where His light shines through. The breaks in your spirit aren't endings, they're beginnings of something more beautiful than what you were before. Your scars are not disfigurements. They are signatures, God's autograph of survival written on your soul. Jesus Himself bore scars. When He rose from the dead and appeared to His disciples, what was the first thing He showed them? His wounds. Not to prove His suffering, but to prove His victory. Those nail-scarred hands weren't evidence of defeat. They were credentials of triumph over death itself. Every betrayal that should have made you bitter but didn't, that's holy ground. Every loss that should have destroyed your faith but instead deepened it, that's sacred soil. Every wound that should have closed your heart but somehow made it more tender toward others' pain, that's the signature of the divine potter at work. Right now, I want you to do something that might feel strange but is absolutely necessary. Place your hand over your heart and whisper these words. My scars are holy. Say it again, louder this time. My scars are holy. Because every mark on your soul tells the story of a battle you won. Every scar bears witness to a night you survived when quitting would have been easier. Every wound proves that you carry something so precious, so powerful, that hell itself had to mobilize to try to stop you. The fire that was meant to consume you has instead created something pure, something rare, something that can only be forged in the furnace of affliction. And now, dear one, now comes the question that will determine everything about your next chapter. Will you continue to hide your scars in shame, or will you finally understand that they are your credentials for the healing ministry God is about to release through you? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. You've been living with a question that burns in your chest every single day. When will they pay for what they did to me? I'm talking about your brother who stole your inheritance and left you with nothing at 73 years old. I'm talking about that supervisor who passed you over for promotion 27 times because of your faith. I'm talking about those church members who whispered behind your back while you tithed your last dollar. I'm talking about your own children who abandoned you in that nursing home and never call. You've been waiting for justice so long you've started to believe it's never coming. You've watched the wicked prosper while you scraped pennies together. You've seen liars get promoted while your honesty kept you invisible. You've witnessed betrayers receive blessings while your loyalty earned you loneliness. But here's what hell doesn't want you to know. God keeps books, and His accounting system never makes mistakes. Psalm 37:13 declares something that will shake your foundation. The Lord laughs at the wicked, for He knows their day is coming. Not might be coming, not could be coming, is coming. Present tense, already in motion, already sealed in heaven's court. You think justice is slow. You think God forgot about that backstabbing business partner who left you bankrupt. You think heaven overlooked that daughter-in-law who turned your grandchildren against you. You think the Almighty missed that pastor who stole your tithe money and bought himself a mansion. Wrong. Dead wrong. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a gavel in heaven's courtroom, and it's about to strike. Can you hear it? That rumbling in the spiritual realm, that shifting in the atmosphere around your life, that's not your imagination, dear one. That's the sound of divine justice preparing to echo across the earth. For every betrayal that left you bleeding, heaven has prepared a vindication. For every loss that left you empty, God has orchestrated a restoration. For every silent tear you cried when no one was watching, the Almighty has collected evidence that will make them tremble. You see, the enemy made one fatal mistake. He thought if he could keep you broken long enough, if he could keep you isolated long enough, if he could keep you poor long enough, you'd eventually curse God and die. But he miscalculated something crucial about your spiritual DNA. You don't break. You bend, but you don't break. And every time you refused to become what tried to destroy you, every time you blessed instead of cursed, every time you prayed for your enemies instead of plotting revenge, you were building a case in heaven's supreme court that no demon in hell can appeal. Job understood this mystery when he declared in Job 19:25, "I know that my Redeemer lives, and that in the end he will stand on the earth." Job lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health, his wife's respect, but he knew something his accusers didn't know. He knew that God keeps books, and when the books are opened, truth always wins. But here's where it gets personal for you, chosen one. Here's where your story intersects with heaven's timeline. That person who destroyed your reputation, they're about to face public humiliation that will make your suffering look like a paper cut. That company that cheated you out of your pension, they're about to experience financial collapse that will leave them begging for mercy. That family member who turned everyone against you, they're about to discover what it feels like to be abandoned by everyone they thought they could trust. This isn't revenge, this is justice, and there's a difference. Revenge is human emotion seeking satisfaction. Justice is divine order demanding balance. Revenge is temporary pleasure. Justice is eternal demonstration that God protects his own. And you, dear one, you are his own. But justice doesn't creep into your situation like a whisper in the night. Justice doesn't tiptoe around the feelings of those who hurt you. Justice doesn't ask permission from those who thought they could escape consequences. Justice is not creeping, it is marching. Justice is not whispering, it is roaring. And heaven is about to shock them all. Do you hear that sound? That's not thunder in the distance. That's the footsteps of divine vindication approaching your situation. That's the echo of heaven's gavel striking. And the sound is reverberating through every courthouse, every boardroom, every family gathering where your name was dragged through mud. The same people who counted you out are about to be forced to count you back in. The same voices that declared you finished are about to watch you flourish. The same hands that pushed you into the pit are about to witness you sitting on the throne. Because when God decides to vindicate his chosen ones, he doesn't just restore what was taken, he multiplies it. Job didn't just get his original wealth back, he received double. The Israelites didn't just escape slavery, they plundered Egypt on their way out. David didn't just survive Saul's attacks, he inherited Saul's kingdom. Your vindication won't just silence your accusers, it will shock them into speechlessness. Wherever you are right now, whatever room you're in, whatever pain you're carrying, I need you to lift your voice and declare with everything in you, justice is mine. Say it louder. Justice is mine. Let hell hear it. Justice is mine. Because the echo of heaven's justice is about to become the earthquake that shakes every foundation built on lies about you. And when the dust settles, they won't just see you standing. They'll see you reigning. But what happens next will require something from you that might terrify you more than all the injustice you've endured. Dear chosen one, let me paint you a picture that's going to shatter every lie you've believed about your current season. Picture the greatest Broadway theater in Manhattan. The curtain is drawn. The audience can't see what's happening backstage. They assume nothing important is occurring because there's no performance visible. But backstage, that's where the real preparation happens. That's where costumes are fitted, makeup is perfected, lines are rehearsed until they become second nature. That's where the star transforms from ordinary person into the character that will leave audiences breathless. You've been backstage, beloved. Hidden, forgotten by human eyes, dismissed by those who measure worth by visibility. But God has been your director this entire time. Every rejection that stung your soul wasn't random cruelty, it was divine direction. Every door that slammed in your face wasn't punishment, it was positioning. Every season of silence, when you wondered if anyone remembered your name, wasn't abandonment, it was preparation for applause you haven't even imagined yet. Think about Joseph, 17 years old with dreams of greatness, only to be thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused. Forgotten in prison for years, if you had seen him in that dungeon, covered in filth, would you have recognized royalty? Would you have seen a future prime minister? The people who knew Joseph before his promotion couldn't have imagined what God was building in the darkness. Genesis 41:41 records the moment everything changed. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt." In one conversation, Joseph went from prisoner to prime minister, from forgotten to unforgettable. But here's what will shock you about your situation right now. The same people who wrote you off, who assumed your best days were behind you, who whispered that you'd never amount to anything significant, they're about to become the audience to your unveiling. Not for your glory, but for God's. You see, God doesn't just bless His chosen ones in secret. He makes their vindication public. He ensures that those who doubted His faithfulness in your life become witnesses to His power. Isaiah 61:7 promises, "Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance." A double portion. That means everything you lost gets returned twice over. Every opportunity that passed you by comes back magnified. Every dream that seemed dead gets resurrected with interest. But why has it taken so long? Why did God let you suffer in obscurity while others seem to rise effortlessly? Because easy promotion creates weak character, but hidden preparation creates unshakable foundation. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to deliver Israel. 40 years. Can you imagine the thoughts that tormented his mind? I'm 60 years old, tending sheep in the middle of nowhere. I had my chance and I blew it. God's moved on to someone younger, someone better. But God hadn't moved on. He was moving Moses into position because the assignment waiting for Moses required someone who had been broken of pride, refined by solitude, and tested by time. The man who fled Egypt as a murderer needed 40 years of desert preparation to become the deliverer of nations. Your wilderness wasn't wasted time. It was classroom time. And now, right now, something is shifting in the spiritual realm above your life. The curtain that has hidden your season of preparation is beginning to rise. Can you feel it? That electricity in the atmosphere around your circumstances, that sense that everything familiar is about to change. Hidden, 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 now revealed. Hidden when they mocked your dreams. Now revealed as prophetic vision. Hidden when they questioned your choices. Now revealed as divine wisdom. Hidden when they counted you out. Now revealed as God's secret weapon. The Apostle Paul understood this principle when he wrote in 1 Corinthians 4-5, "He will bring to light what is hidden in darkness and will expose the motives of the heart." God is about to bring to light everything that's been developing in your darkness. Every seed of faith you planted when hope seemed impossible. Every act of kindness you showed when bitterness would have been justified. Every moment you chose obedience when rebellion would have been easier. It's all been recorded, it's all been valued, and it's all about to be revealed. But I need to prepare you for something that might overwhelm your emotions. When this unveiling begins, it won't be gradual. It won't be a slow trickle of good fortune. When God decides to showcase His faithfulness in someone's life, it happens with the force of a dam breaking. People who ignored you for years will suddenly want to know your secret. Doors that remained locked will swing open without you even knocking. Opportunities that seemed reserved for others will start seeking you out. Favor will follow you into rooms where you once felt unwelcome. And those who thought you were finished, they'll have to swallow their words as they watch God prove that His timing is perfect, His plans are unstoppable, and His chosen ones are never truly forgotten. This isn't about revenge, beloved. This is about revelation. Revelation of who you've always been underneath the circumstances that tried to define you. Revelation of what God can do with a life that remains faithful in the shadows. Revelation that age doesn't disqualify you, it qualifies you with wisdom that can't be fast-tracked. Write this down right now. My hiddenness is ending. My unveiling has begun. Say it out loud where you are. Let faith rise in your voice as you declare what heaven is already orchestrating. Because the curtain is rising, chosen one, and what the audience is about to see will leave them speechless. But this unveiling comes with a responsibility, that will determine whether your elevation becomes a platform or a pedestal. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. Right now, somewhere in America, there's a boardroom full of people who wrote you off. They're making decisions about your future without you in the room. They've already determined that your season is over, that your voice doesn't matter anymore, that you're just another senior citizen taking up space in a world that worships youth. But what they don't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, is that heaven operates on a completely different timeline than Wall Street. You see, while they've been counting you out, God has been counting up every injustice, every overlooked contribution. Every time they passed you by for someone younger, someone flashier, someone who fit their narrow definition of valuable, He's been keeping score, and the books are about to balance. They thought you were done. They saw your grey hair and assumed your fire had died. They looked at your slower pace and decided your race was finished. They witnessed your quiet strength and mistook it for weakness. But God is about to shock them all. Let me tell you what's really been happening while you've felt invisible, while you've been questioning your worth, wondering if your best days are behind you, crying out to God in the middle of sleepless nights. Heaven has been orchestrating the most dramatic reversal in your family's history. You know what happened to Job, don't you? For chapters and chapters, his friends sat around telling him he must have done something wrong. They analyzed his failures, dissected his choices, convinced themselves that his suffering was evidence of God's displeasure. They thought they understood the story. But Job 42:10 records the moment that silenced every critic. After Job had prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before. Twice as much. Not just restoration, multiplication, not just getting back to zero, but overwhelming abundance that left his accusers speechless. That's what's coming for you, beloved. Not just a comeback, a complete reversal that will leave people wondering if they ever really knew you at all. But here's what cuts deepest. The very people who dismissed you, who made you feel forgotten, who acted like your contributions didn't matter, they're about to witness something that will shatter their understanding of how God moves. They thought you were silent because you had nothing left to say. But God was teaching you the power of strategic silence, the kind of silence that stores up thunder for the right moment. They thought you were finished because you stopped fighting for their attention. But God was positioning you beyond their reach, beyond their ability to limit your impact, beyond their small understanding of what true influence looks like. They thought you were forgotten because you disappeared from their circles. But God was hiding you in the secret place, refining you like gold, preparing you for a season where your presence wouldn't just be noticed, it would be undeniable. Consider Lazarus, 4 days dead, not sick, not sleeping, dead. Martha told Jesus, "Lord, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days." Even his own sister had given up hope. The mourners had gone home. The funeral was over. Case closed. But then Jesus showed up. John 11:43 records the moment that changed everything. Jesus called in a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" Not a whisper, not a suggestion, a command that reached into the realm of the impossible and dragged life back from death itself. Right now, God is standing outside your tomb, the same tomb where people buried your dreams, your potential, your relevance. And He's about to call your name with such authority that death itself will have no choice but to release what it thought it owned. But here's the shocking part. When Lazarus walked out of that tomb, he didn't come out apologizing. He didn't emerge making excuses for being dead. He didn't stumble out grateful just to be breathing. He walked out as living proof that what man calls finished, God calls a fresh start. From forgotten to favored, from hidden to highlighted, from silence to song. This is your divine reversal, and it's happening right now. The earthquake has already begun. Can you feel the ground shifting beneath the feet of everyone who counted you out? Can you sense the panic in the voices of those who thought they had you figured out? Because when God decides to showcase His faithfulness through your life, it doesn't happen quietly. It doesn't sneak in through the back door. It announces itself with the kind of power that makes mountains move and valleys rise. Isaiah 40:4 declares it with thunderous authority. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low. The rough ground shall become level, the rugged places a plain. The valleys of your rejection raised up, the mountains of their arrogance brought low, the rough ground of their dismissal made level, the rugged places of their judgment smoothed into a highway for your breakthrough. They thought they were watching your sunset, but God is about to prove they were actually witnessing your sunrise. Rise up. Wherever you are right now, rise. Stand to your feet and declare with everything in you, this is my reversal season. Because the stone isn't just rolling away from your tomb, beloved. It's rolling toward everyone who put it there in the first place. But what happens next will determine whether this reversal becomes a whisper or a roar. Beloved chosen one, as we reach the end of this sacred journey together, I need you to carry these truths with you like precious stones in your heart. Remember this, you were never forgotten. Every tear you shed in secret, God collected in golden bowls. Every prayer you whispered in the darkness, heaven recorded as evidence. Every moment you chose to keep going when quitting seemed easier, that was divine DNA flowing through your veins. Remember this, the delays weren't denials. The silence wasn't abandonment. The hiddenness wasn't punishment. You weren't being overlooked. You were being prepared for something so magnificent that it required decades of refining to make you ready to carry it. Remember this, your age is not your limitation, it's your qualification. Your scars are not your shame, they're your credentials. Your struggles are not evidence of God's absence, they're proof of His presence, shaping you into someone who can handle the weight of His glory. But more than anything, remember that you are not walking this path alone. Right now, as you listen to my voice, the Creator of the universe is working behind the scenes on your behalf. He's moving mountains you can't see, opening doors you haven't found yet, orchestrating connections that will leave you breathless with His faithfulness. And beyond that, you have a community right here. Look at these comments flowing in thousands of hearts just like yours, carrying the same calling, feeling the same stirring, walking the same narrow road that leads to divine purpose. We're not just viewers on a screen. We're a family of the chosen, bound together by the thread of His love. So let me ask you this final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God has brought you this far through every valley, every storm, every season that tried to break you, why would He abandon you now at the threshold of your greatest victory? He wouldn't. He won't. He never will. Before you leave this sacred space, let me place my hand on your shoulder and pray over your life with the authority that comes from walking with God through my own valleys and mountains. Heavenly Father, I come before your throne right now, carrying every precious soul who has heard this message. Lord, you see them, not just their struggles, but their potential. Not just their pain, but their purpose. Not just their scars, but their strength. God, I pray that you would silence every voice of doubt that has whispered they're too old, too late, too forgotten. I pray that you would break every chain of discouragement that has held them captive. I pray that you would open their eyes to see the doors you're already opening, the opportunities you're already creating, the blessings you're already releasing. Father, breathe fresh wind into their weary souls. Where they feel depleted, restore them. Where they feel invisible, let them know they are seen by you. Where they feel forgotten, remind them that their names are engraved on your palms. Lord, give them supernatural strength for the journey ahead. Give them divine connections that will accelerate their purpose. Give them favor that opens doors no man can shut. Give them peace that surpasses understanding, joy that no circumstance can steal, and hope that anchors their souls in every storm. Most of all, Father, let them feel your presence right now. Let them know in their spirit that you are proud of how far they've come, excited about where you're taking them, and committed to completing the good work you began in them. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. I want to hear from you. Don't let this moment pass in silence. Drop a comment below and tell us what God spoke to your heart today. Share your testimony. Someone needs to hear that they're not alone in their struggle. Ask for prayer if you need it. This community will surround you with intercession and love. And if this message touched your soul, please share it with someone who needs to hear these words. There's a person in your life right now who feels forgotten, who wonders if their best days are behind them, who needs to know that God's greatest moves often come disguised as the longest waits. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart to receive what heaven wanted to pour into you today. Your faithfulness to watch until the very end tells me everything I need to know about your character. You're ready for what God has prepared. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. Every week, we're releasing messages specifically designed to remind God's chosen ones that they are loved, they are seen, and they are never alone. Until we meet again, walk in the confidence of who you are. You are chosen. You are beloved. You are about to shock everyone who thought you were forgotten. Go in peace, knowing that your greatest chapter is just beginning.